Hello and good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us for our session here today to talk about going to college out of state. We have a couple of great reps here to talk about that process for you. But before we do that, I am going to share my screen to show you a couple of housekeeping items to keep in mind as we start our session out today. In order to ask questions, there will be a Q&A button to type your questions at any time. No need to wait for the Q&A section. You can just type them in as you think of them. Your camera and microphone will be turned off for this webinar, so you're muted and your video is off. No one can see or hear you. We definitely recommend you sign up for more sessions. This is one of the many college presentations. This is going on for a whole nother week after this. So definitely check that out at njaacac.org/virtual fair. And additionally, this recording will be made available. So if maybe you wanted to rewatch this, or if you had a friend that wasn't able to attend, you can share this with them and that will be available on that same website. And before I hand it over, I will say my name is Kate Slate. I am a college and career counselor over at Chatham High School in New Jersey, and I'm excited to be facilitating for our panelists here today in a really important topic as we consider studying outside of New Jersey, essentially. So I'm going to hand it over. I will be turning my mic off and my video off as well, so you can spend all of your time looking at our lovely panelists. But enjoy the session, and I will talk to you all towards the end.
Alrighty, well, thank you. We're going to go ahead and get started. We are going to be talking about going out of state for college, so leaving the state of New Jersey for college. So to start things off, we're going to go ahead and introduce the team. And to introduce myself, my name is Christy Pugh. I'm an admissions recruiter advisor for the University of South Florida, and I cover the state of New Jersey. The University of South Florida is a public institution located in Tampa Bay. We have around 50,000 students, and we also have two other campuses in St. Pete's and Sarasota, Manatee.
Hi everyone, my name is Erin Stahl-Kiefer. I'm the Regional Enrollment Coordinator for the Greater New York City area for University of Cincinnati. I recruit in New Jersey and New York mainly. New Jersey is my homestay, so that's usually where I end up. And University of Cincinnati is a large public Tier 1 research institution located in Cincinnati, Ohio, and we have over 350 programs.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashley Willis and I'm the Associate Director of Freshman Admissions at Massachusetts Maritime Academy. I work with students from most of the Mid-Atlantic, so New Jersey down through the Carolinas. And if you don't know about Mass Maritime, we're a State University of Massachusetts as well as a State Maritime Academy, which basically means we offer a very specialized set of programs. We have about 1,700 undergraduate students and 7 STEM-based majors, some in the maritime and some in other fields.
All right, hello everyone. My name is Stephanie Molina and I am a freshman admission counselor for East Carolina University. We're a 4-year public institution as well. We're known as a research university. We have roughly 23,000 undergraduate students. I know this reflects 28,000 students, but that's just in total. We have over 400 degrees in concentration, so we do offer the broadest spectrum of undergraduate degrees for our state.
And last but not least, my name is Amanda Woolley. I am Assistant Director of Admission for DePaul University, located in Chicago, Illinois. I am regionally based out of the New York City Metro to be a little bit closer to you all in New Jersey. Or hopefully more out-of-state students as well. DePaul is the largest Catholic school in the country with just over 16,000 undergraduate students. We are part of we're named after St. Vincent de Paul, so we do follow the Vincentian mission, much like St. John's in New York City and Niagara outside of Buffalo. So we do follow the Vincentian teachings of asking the question, what must be done? And at DePaul, we say, here we do. But today we're going to tell you a little bit about the college process and maybe some myths and differences about going out of state. So this is kind of the agenda for the day. We are considering different types of colleges, how to increase your options by looking out of state, important factors to consider during the search, demystifying some myths about going out of state, and then campus visit during this crazy time of COVID. So whether that's virtual visits or actually getting on a campus to see them, different aspects of visiting during this time. So I'm really just going to give some definitional points to what college is. You may know some of these already, or you may have heard some of these terms, but I just wanted to give you a scope of the different types of institutions there are out there. There are, of course, community colleges, which offer associate degrees and certificates. These focus on preparing you for a certain career or to transfer to a four-year college. Then you have the different types of four-year institutions. Liberal arts college, these are institutions of higher learning that focus on courses in liberal arts, which include literature, history, languages, math, and science. So you still could be a STEM major, but the college itself has that focus on general education overall. Sometimes you'll think of these as maybe smaller private schools across the country, but their focus is that general education of a liberal arts college. Public colleges, these are funded by local and state governments and usually offer lower tuition rates for those students in the state. So for you in New Jersey, this would be a Rutgers and Rowan, or somewhere where you are paying an in-state rate, and students from Pennsylvania, Delaware, New York have to pay a higher cost to attend. So these are what public colleges are. And a few of us in here are public colleges. I, for one, am a private institution, which private colleges and universities rely mainly on tuition, fees, and private sources for funding. So really, we are a largely tuition-driven institution, and there is no difference between an in-state student and an out-of-state student. These colleges and universities can sometimes be larger and offer more majors or graduate degrees beyond, just that first 4 years. Because you do have different degree programs. Coming out of high school, you will earn a bachelor's degree. So the first is an associate's degree that you could possibly get at a community college. And then a 4-year degree is a bachelor's. And then the next step would be a master's degree, that is graduate school. Or you can go on and get a doctoral or terminal degree. Usually in universities, they contain several smaller schools within the institution itself. So for example, at DePaul, we have 10 colleges and schools underneath DePaul University. These include, business, communication, our College of Computing and Digital Media, and so on. Then you have the vocational and technical career colleges that are really specialized in training for a particular industry. These could be 2 to 4 year programs, maybe sometimes 18 months, but they're really going to focus in on drilling you on to get into a certain type of program. So this could be mechanics, maybe beauty school, anything, or cosmetology school, I apologize, that really focus in and training you on a specific industry. And then you have for-profit colleges. These are sometimes something to be aware of because they are businesses that offer a variety of degree programs, which typically prepare students for a specific career, like vocational and technical colleges, but they tend to have higher cost and they are not financial aid eligible or very limited financial aid. And then another thing to look for is that the credits might not transfer to another institution. That's one big thing, especially for community colleges. If you are hoping to transfer eventually, you want to make sure those courses will transfer to another institution. And it is perfectly fine to transfer. We do see students transfer because you do end up with that same degree at the end of the day. And next, to increase your options.
Great, thank you. So a major reason to consider out-of-state options and look beyond kind of your backyard is definitely to increase the availability of options. And there's a lot of ways in which looking out of state can increase your options. One is admissions rates or levels of selectivity. Obviously, you have a lot of options in New Jersey. So this isn't to say that every college in New Jersey is going to be super selective, but especially if you're considering a certain program that might be particularly selective within your state, looking at that same program in other states might be a good way to broaden your options in terms of choosing something that might have a higher admissions rate for you. Similarly, it can increase your options for direct entry programs. For example, something like nursing. Maybe those direct entry programs are highly selective in your state, but you can find another option in another state where your chances may be higher. That's something to consider if you're looking into that type of program. Another reason to look out of state and increase your options is specialized programming. So for me at Maritime Academy, we're a real obvious example of this because we're actually one of only 6 state maritime academies in the country. And so 2 of the programs we have are ones you actually can't do in the state of New Jersey. Similarly, DePaul has a film and television program, which is not something you see at every school. So sometimes you're just looking to study something that you can't necessarily do in your home state, or maybe you're looking to discover something that you haven't heard of already that might not be available in your home state. And so by looking beyond that, it opens up the options into the types of programs you can apply to, or finding new programs that you didn't know that you were interested in. Going out of state is also a great opportunity to explore new places, see new cities, sort of expand your network. That also leaves you the opportunity of a different network to look for internships while you're in school, different job opportunities for when you graduate from school, because you're in a new place and you're developing that network. You know, if you're in a place like Cincinnati, that's obviously going to be a very different type of city than you have in New Jersey. So that's going to open up a new network and present you with internship opportunities for while you're in school, but also once you're graduating and looking for that first experience. It's another great opportunity to learn more about yourself and maybe figure out where you want to spend time once you graduate from college. You know, going somewhere different for school, it gives you the opportunity to really decide, once you are done with college, do you want to come back to New Jersey, or do you want to explore a third new place, or do you want to stay in that new place that you were? So it gives you an opportunity to learn more about yourself and kind of where you might want to settle or where you want to move, or if you like being away from home. It gives you that opportunity to learn more about yourself. Also, experts in your field. So different areas of the country may give you a better opportunity to connect with people who are really established in your field, especially if you're looking at something that's a more specialized type of program, moving to an area where that field is a big part of the economy, or where the institution has a really big, research center for that industry. It gives you an opportunity to potentially connect with more people who are really developed in that field than you may have at institutions that are closer to you. So obviously there's lots of ways that this can kind of increase your options, but these are some of the highlights in terms of looking beyond your own state and what that can sort of offer you in the college experience. And I will hand it over to the next person.
Thank you, Ashley. So now I'm going to be talking about how exactly, you start the search for your out-of-state school. Now that you've kind of heard from Ashley and how going out of state helps to increase your options, you're probably thinking, where do I start? And the first thing you need to do is think of where do I start quite literally, and eliminate by location. Think about where you want to go for school, because not only is this, an academic decision, but you're also deciding on where you're going to call home for the next 4 to 6 years. So do you want to go somewhere with a sunny climate with palm trees, maybe check out Florida or California? Are you looking for a location that has a lot to do outdoors, perhaps the Midwest, the Southeast? Or do you want to stay, close to home with an easy commute back to New Jersey? Maybe look somewhere in the Northeast. So location is kind of the first step when starting your search for an out-of-state school. The next thing you're going to want to consider is searching by major and looking for schools that have your particular program of interest or the major that you want to major in. And also thinking kind of beyond your bachelor's. Do you want to go to a professional program? Are you thinking about grad school, medical school, veterinary school, PhD programs? Those are things to consider as well, because a lot of the times where you get your bachelor's, you could also do those programs afterwards as well. The next thing to search for is by interest. And this kind of goes back to location in that you need to think about your life kind of outside of the classroom and what you're going to be doing, on the weekends. Again, this is going to be your home for the next 4 to 6 years. So it's important to have things that interest you. So do you want to go somewhere where there's stuff to do, things outdoors and hikings? Or do you want to be in a big metropolitan city where there's opportunities, for part-time work, research, internships? Those are the things to consider with your interest. Next, we have our clubs. So clubs, academic or not, kind of help you to find your community on campus, find your niche, because no matter what school you go to, you're going to kind of want to make that school smaller and make it your home away from home. And it kind of helps you to find a community of like-minded people. So searching by clubs to see if there's a community for you on their campus. And lastly, yes, even search by athletics. I included this one because even if you are a participant or not, maybe you're just a fan of athletics and sporting events, this is something to consider as well. Maybe you don't want to be a college athlete, but maybe you want to play at a non-competitive level, like a club sport or an intramural sport, or maybe you're just looking for that classic college game day experience. Your athletics do play a role in your college experience. So to kind of sum it up, how you start your search for your out-of-state school is to first eliminate location, think about where you want to live. Next is to search by major and make sure that the schools that you're looking at have the program that you want to study. Next, you want to search by interest and what you want to do outside of the classroom and on the weekends. Next, we have searching by clubs, thinking about the community you want to build on campus. And then lastly, even searching by athletics, whether that be as an athlete yourself or you just want that game day experience. So now I'm going to hand it over to Erin, and she's going to talk a little bit about some common misconceptions with going out of state.
Thanks, Christy. So there's a big myth out there that going out of state will definitely cost you more, and it's much more affordable and cheaper to attend college in state. So we are here to debunk that myth. That is not necessarily true, and here are a few reasons why. Many schools actually offer specific scholarships for their out-of-state students in order to offset costs. So at UC, we actually have a National Outreach Award. It's a scholarship for out-of-state students in specific geographic areas, as long as you meet academic criteria as well. So it's really something to kind of consider when you're thinking about merit scholarships. It's not just limited to in-state students. Many schools, especially large public schools, and schools that have regional recruiters like myself and DePaul, Amanda at DePaul, we have an initiative and a drive to actually get students from out of state because we are here trying to recruit you and we're living here doing that. So a lot of schools have these special scholarships for out of state students. The next thing you might want to consider is if you live near the state border, there might be certain colleges that have discounted tuition rates for neighboring states. So for many other states and locations throughout the country, states might offer those reciprocity rates with one another so that you can receive an in-state tuition rate or something close to in-state. We actually do this at Cincinnati for parts of Indiana and Kentucky because they are so close to us. They're actually closer than some other parts of Ohio. Another thing is considering increasing your options for merit scholarships by looking out of state. If you think about it, when you're applying to in-state schools in New Jersey, you're one of many, like thousands of students from New Jersey who are applying to those institutions in state for the same merit scholarships. Whereas if you look at out-of-state schools, you could be one of just a handful of students from your state applying to that institution and with these different merit scholarship opportunities. So that might be a little bit more enticing for a college to have some geographic diversity on campus as well. So something to consider in that regard as well. Looking out of state will even increase your options for merit scholarships. And then the same will go for need-based scholarships and grants or financial aid. Some states will have broader programs than others. Some institutions might even have specific need-based grants or scholarships that actually are marked that they have to be awarded to out-of-state students, just to help increase geographic diversity. So that's something else to kind of consider as well. Lastly, cost of living. So the cost of living might be lower in other states than where you currently live. I can tell you that this can significantly affect the cost of housing, your meals when you go out, around campus to get some food outside of the dining hall, entertainment. So even just going to the movies or going to a sporting event, cost of living really impacts all of those things. And I know that for a fact that the cost of living in Cincinnati, Ohio is much less than that of parts of the Northeast, especially New Jersey and the New York area. I grew up in Northern Jersey, so I can tell you it's much more affordable to be in Cincinnati, Ohio than Northern New Jersey. You'll also want to consider kind of beyond these parts of, why it might not be more costly to go out of state. You do also want to consider value. So what does that mean? Basically, the price tag and cost of attendance aside, what value does a specific college have? What are you really getting for your money, the return on investment? So when you enroll at a school, you're joining their community. As Christy had mentioned before, you might want to ask yourself, what impact does that college's community have on the world? What does their alumni network look like? What types of resources are available to you as a student? Do students participate in things like internships, co-op, study abroad? Are students actually getting jobs when they graduate or going on to graduate programs? As an example, at UC, we actually invented co-op, and we have a really strong co-op program where students earn on average over $10,000 per semester that they co-op. So that gives you literal added value to your degree and your time at UC, just as an example. And it will also increase your chances of potentially being hired full-time by that company, as well as adding professional experience to your resume. So all of these are kind of important value items to think about that you're not going to see when you just look at the price tag or the cost of tuition. So I will conclude by saying that it's important to consider affordability and what works for you and your family's budget, but you also don't want to rule out a school simply based on the price. Between all of these different things that we went over, there are a lot of reasons why going out of state for college might actually be more affordable. So now I will pass it over to Stephanie to cover how you can start visiting colleges as an out-of-state student.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Erin. Okay, so visiting colleges outside of New Jersey. So how is that possible, right? So more so than ever, this is your time to start or either continue that college search. As we have all stated before, please do not use location as the barrier. There are so many different opportunities just kind of waiting for you, kind of like what Ashley touched based on earlier, admission rates, affordability. You get to explore a whole new city, a whole new way of life, a whole new culture, different types of job opportunities, and so much more. It only took a pandemic, but definitely colleges and universities are more accessible than they have ever been before. We are still offering information sessions, campus tours, different academic days, but of course they just have turned into a virtual platform. More so than ever, well, us as admission counselors, we have been planning for months different types of virtual visits with your high schools. So if you ever see us in town, definitely feel free to register for those. If it's during a class time that you have, ask your high school counselor if it can be recorded, or if the actual institution themselves can send you information afterwards. We're called an admissions office for a purpose. We're here to admit as many students as possible. So of course, taking that virtual tour, go on our websites, find us out, see what kind of campus tours are available. I know if you have an option to actually go to campus or just sit at your computer and watch it, it's pretty awesome. We've tried to make it as normal, not just for us, but for you as the students to visit our campus. There's different ways to do that, simple registration, but we try to include pictures, videos, and just make it interactive so it's not boring. We understand that Zoom exhaustion is a real thing. Don't worry, we also experience it, but it's a great way to just start that process. This year, it has been a little bit difficult just for overall, not just as a student, but the admission process. Contact the admissions office and find out what are the requirements. See if you can set up an appointment with your admission counselor. So we're all the admission counselors for the state of New Jersey, just for our institution. So let us know what you need. We're here to help you out. We all have different requirements, and unless you contact us or sit in on one of our virtual visits, it's kind of hard to find out exactly what we're looking for this year. But whenever you do get a chance, definitely feel free to check us out in person. I know for ECU specifically, East Carolina University, we have campus tours on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, but it's only up until November. So if it's an option to actually go out of state and travel to visit any of the other institutions and make a trip out of that, definitely just make sure you're checking up on their dates and see what is available, what times are available, and how many people can come with you. Because unfortunately, with the pandemic, we can't allow full sets of family to come visit us. And then last but not least, we definitely encourage you all to register for our virtual fall open house. Each one of us have some form of if it's not a virtual fall open house, it can be an academic day or a virtual information session. I know for ECU, ours is coming up on Sunday, October 18th. For USF, for University of South Florida, theirs is coming up on Saturday, October 24th. And for DePaul, theirs is also on Saturday, October 24th. And just go out there, go to our websites. Like I said, contact us, let us know. All these events, if not all, they are free. It only takes a few seconds to register, and you can hop in and out as you need to. But we're here to help you out. Let us know what you need. But thank you all for being here.
And here is our, so that is kind of our presentation. We appreciate you coming and attending, but we did want to leave quite a bit of time for questions, as this was a little bit more general. If you would like to talk to us specifically about our institutions, all of our contact information is on the screen. So feel free to email us. We are happy to connect with you about our institutions or about college in general. We know this is a crazy time, especially with COVID. The admission process is crazy in a normal year, but just add this process and it's just gone a little crazy. So feel free to put your questions in the chat and we will get to them. So feel free to type away. But did anyone want to kind of start off by talking about anything that they think they want to add or anything like that?
I can start off on something. So there are ways where you can get involved with other programs. Like some institutions have very specialized majors, but there are like honors programs out there. I will promote this for ECU, but basically we do accept 200 students every single year for our honors college. They're not going to be looking at test scores this year. Some institutions are kind of similar, so more so than ever, this is your year to take your chances with all of us to see if you can be admitted, which is really great. But again, reach out to each individual office because it can be a little bit different.
We did have a question pop in. So the question is, what do you think is the most important thing to consider when going out of state? And this is someone who is looking to go out of state, but is a little bit unsure of the right option. If anyone has thoughts.
Yeah, so I was typing an answer to this question. I was going to say, just think about what you're looking for in a college experience and kind of picture in your mind where you see yourself experiencing that. So kind of, take some time to do some self-reflecting and just thinking about what you want your life to look like at the end of going to college. So that would be my, greatest piece of advice, is going somewhere that you feel, is like a home to you, because I think that's one of the most important things, especially when going out of state, because you are going to be so far away from your home potentially. So just thinking about that and thinking about where you could call home for the next few years.
I was going to add to that. I think for a good first step too, if you're kind of unsure, is to consider, do you want to be driving distance from home or do you want to be like a flight from home? Because that can be like a big difference for, when you're on your college campus, it doesn't necessarily feel any different, but when you're trying to get back home for some reason, that can be a lot different as well. So if you're a little bit apprehensive about going out of state, but you're kind of excited about the idea, then maybe start by looking at colleges that are within a pretty like decent driving distance, but not terribly far, maybe within a couple of hours, and see how that feels. Even, going to visit campuses that you can, some campuses that they don't have their formal visit program, you can at least do a self-guided tour sometimes, so you can check that out. If that 2-hour drive feels like nothing, then maybe expand it, go a little bit further and see what that feels like. I know it's hard to fly now, but if you're someone who just wants to you make sure that, mom doesn't show up randomly unannounced and you want to be a flight away, then maybe that's where you start looking. Look at schools that are a little bit further and would require a flight. So I think that's a good place to kind of start too, an important detail that can help you narrow down where your search is going to be. Anyone else have any important things to consider?
Well, I would also like to just say that sometimes people say they want to stay in state because they'll be closer to home and homesickness. As somebody that only went an hour away from where I grew up, and my mom could just pop in on me, I still got homesick. It's still a change from the norm. It's still going to be a different location. So even if you only go a few, like maybe a half hour to an hour away, you're still going to probably get that homesickness bug than if you go 12 hours away. So don't let homesickness drive you, because I can very much attest to being homesick, and I was about 45 minutes away from home.
I would actually say something similar. Think about how immersed in your college experience you plan to be. Like if you're envisioning college as being on campus and being really involved, and you want to stay on the weekends because you want to get involved in clubs and everything like that, that's going to be your community. And so even if you were to stay close to home, it's still a community away from where you grew up. I actually myself went to college only 20 minutes away from where I lived, and being on camp, like when I was on campus, it was still felt so far away from where I had grown up. So don't let that, if you're envisioning that fully immersed college experience, know that it's probably gonna feel far whether you're close or not. So don't let that be the thing that limits you.
Yeah, and also don't forget you're going to make friends regardless of where you go, not just like have that community feeling right there, but within the residence halls or wherever you get to live on campus, you're going to have a really great network of friends. Sometimes they will even have cars that you can just kind of carpool to go back home or to the airport, really up to you. But just making sure once you get to campus, make sure you get a really nice group of friends to just kind of have right then and there to be your home away from home.
I wanted to also, since I don't see any more questions popping in yet, elaborate on something that Ashley had mentioned at the beginning of the presentation when she was talking about direct entry programs or more competitive programs. Just to sort of elaborate on the fact that if you think about like a competitive nursing program that you might apply to at an in-state, New Jersey institution, there are thousands probably of other New Jersey students applying to that same program, like nursing or even competitive engineering programs like aerospace, mechanical engineering, or computer science, those types of programs. Whereas like if you look at a school out of state, like I know at UC, we get lots of students apply to our nursing program from Ohio, but when you're an out-of-state student applying to our nursing program, you actually stand out just because you're from out of state. So I know Ashley touched upon that, but I just wanted to kind of elaborate on why that's actually an important detail to look at some of those more competitive programs or selective programs at an out-of-state institution, so that you can kind of set yourself apart simply just by being not from the state that the college is located in.
So we got another question, and it's, would you have done anything differently when you looked at colleges? So back when we all were doing our college search process.
I do want to start off with this because I went to an in-state I went to an in-state school. So I stayed in-state for my education. I am not from New Jersey. I am from Indiana. So, but one thing I wish I would have known was that I've always seen those private school tags, like the price tag of a private school. And I wish I would have known about that coming down a lot, and not been so scared to apply to private schools, because that price tag can be a little scary, but many times that's just the starting offer at private schools. And whether that's merit-based scholarships, extra additional scholarships, financial aid, financial need met, I really wish I would have invested in researching private schools, just like I had just the schools around Indiana. So that is something that I wish I would have done a little bit more research on when I was applying to colleges.
Just to add to that, I actually attended a private institution. It wasn't out of state, but for me, it was actually cheaper at that private institution than it would have been at the flagship state university that was also close by. So that is a real thing that does happen. Also, listen to your mom or listen to, whoever is helping you with the search process. It's easy to feel like this is exactly what I want and I'm not going to budge on that, but be open to ideas. I ended up at a place that at first I wasn't happy about being at, because I didn't think that it's where I envisioned myself, and my mom was the one telling me, I think you'd do better at a smaller school, and she turned out to be 100% right. So, take advice, and don't be afraid to be flexible with what you're envisioning.
There was a really good question that came in about, so being that many colleges and universities are virtual right now, would community colleges be worth going to first and then transferring when colleges completely open up? So if anyone has thoughts on that.
I think that is a great option. I would talk to schools that you're maybe thinking of transferring to and see their transfer policies to make sure that the classes you might take at a community college will eventually help you on the path to getting the degree at a school that you would want to attend. At one of the previous institutions that I worked for, they weren't very transfer friendly. So starting off somewhere else and then trying to transfer in, especially for one of their more highly selective programs, would have maybe set a student back a year. So they wouldn't in the end have saved any money. So it's a really a big conversation to have when thinking about saving money. So yes, in all aspects, going to a community college can really be helpful, but you really need to know what that next step is of transferring. Are there set transfer criteria for the school that you're maybe wanting to go to? So those are some conversations to be having with your college. And there are transfer counselors at probably all of our institutions that can sit down with you and talk to students about that process before deciding to even transfer. Anybody else want to add?
I just want to quickly add to that. Considering, if you are going to go to a community college, let's say in New Jersey, and then you want to transfer to a school out of state, it's also important to make sure that the classes that you're taking are going to transfer to that out of state school. So really sitting down with either a transfer admissions counselor or your advisor at your community college and just kind of looking through the classes that you're taking and making sure that they're going to transfer on, when you pursue your bachelor's degree.
And I do want to give us a 5-minute warning, since it's, so just for the students to be aware, this is our 5-minute warning.
There are a few more questions. So one is, did colleges try to accept people from different states on purpose, or is it more based on transcripts and applications, or both? Is living out of state from the university you apply to a factor?
I think this can sort of depend on the university. I don't think it's a flat answer for every school. Some institutions it is a priority to increase geographic diversity, and others it's not as big of a priority. I think for a lot of places that are considering it, though, it's still a factor of both. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that the admission standards are going to change for out-of-state applicants. It just is a way that you're standing out as an applicant. So it's just an additional factor in your application. But, you know, what's on your transcript and everything still has to be there. And then the strength of that factor depends on, you know, what the priorities of the school are at any given time. And that can even change from year to year. But it's something you can discuss with your admissions counselor. Because I think a lot of institutions are relatively transparent about, you know, what factors are going to be considered in the application process.
Mm-hmm. There's another question about what resources are usually offered for students who are out of state. What kinds of clubs and activities can out-of-state students join in order to expand their social circle?
So DePaul offers a really cool orientation class. It's called the DePaul Quarter, or Discover and Explore Chicago. So all students have to take this class, no matter if they're in state or out of state, but it really allows us to integrate students into the city of Chicago. Chicago is such a big city, and definitely you can feel lost at times. So we want our students to feel as comforted and as comfortable, whether that's navigating this public transit system or just navigating the campuses that we have. So we offer all of our students a mandatory class that they have to take to get used to that kind of environment. But I would say most schools will offer some type of transition, whether that's talking to an academic advisor or different things for out-of-state students, so they can feel more at home and maybe find other out-of-state students from either the region or that sort of thing. I know every summer I call them ice cream socials with all of the students in New Jersey that have been accepted to DePaul, to try to help them get to know one another before heading to campus for classes.
Yeah, I would say a little similar to that at the University of South Florida. We have a program specifically for our out-of-state students. It's called our ACE program. It stands for Academic and Cultural Engagement Program. So you would start a little bit before the fall semester starts, and it's just for out-of-state students so that they can move in a little bit earlier, you know, get acclimated to the Tampa region and take a couple classes. And they also do a studying away program as well. So not only do you get to meet other out-of-state students and make friends, but you also get that opportunity, you know, to kind of go abroad for a week before the fall semester really kicks off. So I think there's definitely a lot of ways for out-of-state students to feel connected, and just know that you're not the only out-of-state student on that campus. Especially just speaking for the University of South Florida, New Jersey is our biggest out-of-state market. So a lot of our out-of-state students are actually coming from New Jersey.
And then there's a question about if there's a good way to find out if most students go home on the weekends. So whether you're a commuter school or
I would say a good way to find out this information is going kind of like what Stephanie was saying, like on our virtual tours. Typically our tours are led by a current student of our school, so they can really give you a firsthand account of, you know, what it is students are doing on campus. So I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah, I would also encourage you all to follow our students, our social media platforms just in general. That's how you can really find out what's going on. Our students can tell you from firsthand what their experience is, especially if they're an out-of-state student. They can tell you exactly what clubs they're into, what extracurricular activities they're involved with, overall, like a little bit about their major, but just connect with us and our students to really find out what's going on at our institutions.
I think looking at, to that same point on the social media, thinking of a institution student government association among or student senate or whatever it might be called at that school, that's going to be a really big student-run organization that's probably running a lot of campus events. So finding that social media account, probably Instagram right now, would give you an idea of what are some common events, particularly that are happening on the weekends, which can give you an idea of, what life looks like.
All right, folks, it looks like we're getting to our 4:45 time frame. The Q&A was great. Thank you, students, for those great questions. The conversation was really, really helpful for us in New Jersey thinking about maybe flying out to other areas. So I definitely appreciate all the panelists' time. I am going to share my screen for just one last reminder and kind of housekeeping for you all attending. When you close the window here, you'll get a quick survey that has a very, very quick 4 questions. If you could fill that out, that would be much appreciated. It helps us improve upon these programs and make them more beneficial for you and your friends. Sign up for more sessions, like we said earlier, njACAC.org/virtual fair. And again, this recording will be made available at that same website link if you need to reference it or share it in the future. So again, thank you all ladies for sharing your Friday afternoon and sharing all that valuable information with us. We really appreciate it. Bye now. Have a great weekend, everyone.